able to like really optimize the funds. So that's really the messaging that we're trying to get across, which is probably something we can work into like the summary as well. I think if that summary is kind of that 1-2 punch of, just a reminder. So.
And on the things where I saw the list of like attach, are you pretty comfortable with everything that you have everything that you need at this point?
Yeah, I have gotten our Rocky Mountain bills, our articles of incorporation. We just include that first page, correct?
I think so.
It just states, I'll show you.
Yeah.
It just shows that we've incorporated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's just that first
Yeah.
page of what I sent you. But.
And then
I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, they have a whole checkbox of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're good.
But everything you need is something we have, right? You don't
Yeah.
need something from somebody else. Okay.
No, there's no letters that we need of recommendation or anything, so it's all
And this is
internal.
contingent on getting the EPA grant too, I suppose.
No, they don't require any match. So we'd reallocate money from EPA, but we don't need to do any of that until we would be awarded. Hopefully awarded.
It's kind of like the GEO, whatever.
Yeah,
GEO.
GEO. So,
Cool. Okay, I'll check in with you tomorrow, Malia, but I'll try to go through it. And if other people can go through it, especially if we have writings, language
I
still.
can't access the document for some reason. I don't have a Google account under town. So
It won't let me.
if you can just give me a PDF, it's fine and I'll scratch on it.
okay.
I just don't want it to get tangled up with my,
That's
too
because
much of
Britt
my
and I
personal.
don't have a Google, we don't have a down Google account.
What's a good, where you can type it in.
You see, is-
We have had that issue. It won't even let you view it. You can't even open it.
No, access denied.
Right.
well, mine's set up as editing, so
Okay.
but and I assume I can whatever green or something, so you know.
And I'll take just a PDF too, it'll be fine.
I just approved yours that you had just asked, so you guys should have access now. Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Malia.
Thank you. Okay, Erin.
So for the grant application I put together, it would be to retrofit the lights in this community center. What I'm targeting are the lights over here, the utility rooms, the restrooms, and the Bluff Senior Center, because it looks like the lights over on the west side of our gym are actually already like LED retrofitted. My guess is that the ballasts are not retrofitted, but the bulbs themselves are LEDs. So I'd rather focus on these, and I'm fairly confident that these are all still fluorescent lights based on the tubes that we keep putting in there. That's my guess without climbing up to the ceiling. So that's what I'm asking. It comes out to $27,500, something very close to that. The biggest gap that I currently have and I'm trying to fill is regarding the metric output. So with some of those deliverables, I'll just try to get those thrown together. A lot of the information is kind of same with Malia's is that, typically fluorescents use this much energy and this and that. And so that's kind of the gap that I have, but same thing as Malia. If y'all can look through, answer, wordsmith, add information. I feel as though I have most of the body already done. And, if anything, this particular application is a lot lower stakes than Malia's. So please prioritize hers. And then if you have time to jump into mine, please do. I don't think it hurts us to do the application, to submit another application. It does not hurt us to submit another application, but please prioritize hers given the dollar amounts. And this would just be like kind of a nice bonus situation.
So any questions on the grant itself before I ask a procedural question? So when I was looking through yours, Erin, when I got to the application acknowledgement and certification, which is on page 16, the 7th bullet is the applicant acknowledges it has only submitted one application for this specific grant.
It should be for this specific project. Which, you said the 7th bullet
The 7th bullet down, I think, if I counted it correctly, but it's,
for this specific grant? I will acknowledge that there were a lot of mistakes in the particular, this particular, a lot of spelling mistakes, a lot of other things. So Malia, can you reach out to them and just triple check? I mean, it's on their website, but I agree with Ann, that particular bullet point is concerning to me. And I mean, based on what we talked about with them, they said it was okay, but thanks for calling that out. But yeah, Malia, let's have you call them. And my guess is it is probably just a typo, given the number of typos I found.
that was my guess, because I recalled having that conversation where you were explaining it could be multiple project, or, multiple applications for this. But I would feel more comfortable signing it if I knew I wasn't going to sign it and then bump us out of both of these.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
I don't care.
And I would prioritize Malia's. If for any reason they're like, oh no, it's just one per entity, send it once.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay.
So anything else on that?
Good work.
Yeah,
It's a lot of
great.
work.
Yeah, it's just, I always hate those deadlines where you're, everyone in the state that's putting in is putting in at 4:59 PM on that date.
So why is this thing October 15th?
Say that again?
It's another typo.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Okay. Well, it's hard.
Lou, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be picking you up on that microphone, on the speaker, on the recorder, sorry, if I don't have you speak up a little bit more. Okay, should we move to number 2, a discussion of bookkeeper, note taker roles, responsibilities, and wage rates? So, Erin, I think this is your starting point.
Yeah, so since our previously hired bookkeeper is no longer with the organization, I do want to talk about the role. We had combined it, bookkeeper, note taker. It felt like a good way to kind of get someone some extra hours, but I do feel as though we limited ourselves, especially for the bookkeeper, role in terms of, finding someone who's really, really good at one thing or another. And so I wanted to talk to you all about how we wanted to proceed forward with posting for these roles. So just kind of open, that's why it's in the work session, just open discussion as to what makes the most sense for us. I think financially, either way, whether it was posted as just a bookkeeper, just a note taker, or that combo combined, financially, I feel very confident that the wage rate that we would have for any of those roles, we would be able to work with our budget to be able to hire for. But some of the feedback that we got from the bookkeeper upon her exit was she did feel like the bookkeeper portion had kind of ballooned into a little bit more. And so one of the things that we would work on before bringing anyone else into the organization is having like this very clear defined role. I think that's really important. But if we're saying, yeah, we're looking for bookkeeper, we're looking for note taker, we're looking for combo, or are we looking for like administrative support, including bookkeeper? So I just want to see where folks were thinking based on the last couple months and working with the individual who we brought in and who's no longer.
Well, it seems like part of the reason it's ballooned is because there are other needs that need to be met. So I lean more towards something with some admin included into it, just up front, that's part of it. And I don't know exactly it sounded like when we talked the other day that their bookkeepers tend to be bookkeepers, and that's what they want to apply for and not do anything else. So maybe the bookkeeper is a bookkeeper, and then the other position is a note taker admin position or something like that. But I'm afraid that however this is shaken out without the admin position, that there's still going to be the gap of the need in there.
What I talked to Erin about was something very similar to what Britt is saying, is one, I totally agree. We just need to do a column. This is bookkeeper's role. This is what they're doing. This is what the note taker is doing. And I would like to see the admin split off even further, where Erin has an administrative assistant. We put some time into somebody that Erin can say, hey, I started this addressing, started the work on getting the addresses fully functional in Bluff, but it's had to wait because we've had these other things. So can you pick up this project? The note taker for me is harder because it does require morphing into evening hours. It requires some flexibility with like, hey, we need to do a closed session or an executive session or a work session, or planning and zoning needs this, and you kind of pull that in. And so I'm kind of leaning toward the bookkeeper is a separate job, note taker is a separate one, and looking at bringing in admin.
So is note taker, will that be a good enough job to appeal by itself to people if we
Well,
bumped it out
and
there?
that's a good question. It really isn't, I don't think, unless you're someone just where you have a primary other job and you're looking to pick up a little extra money. And I've gone back and forth on that. I'm just feeling like however we do it, I would agree that we need some additional administrative time, however we do it. And I'm not stuck on that idea. I'm not stuck on it has to be a separate position. I'm more stuck on, I think that's a component that we have to identify.
Totally. I do feel like bookkeeper is good to kind of keep boxed off in its own thing.
Yep.
That's totally fine if that's quarantined.
I like that phrase.
Well, and if you have somebody that comes in, you can, add to it later, can't we? Just,
Well, that
think
became
that's
the
the problem.
problem.
but I mean, if
It's like
they
with-
want to.
It's like
yeah,
with
the-
wage, adjustments.
Or with the listing.
Or maybe it's
Somebody.
something that we look at, like, I don't think it's necessarily too much to do a bookkeeper note taker type position. Both of those are fairly, I feel,
Contained.
contained, yes.
Mhm.
But the admin, I feel like it was the admin that was overwhelming.
And we have, how does that look in the budget, like adding?
The admin doesn't look good right now, in my opinion, for this fiscal, we probably need to do a budget amendment anyway, but I think if you were looking for someone who was gonna do all three, for example, I think you'd look at a salaried wage, because then that would adjust for like weird hours here, there's some flex, but if we're keeping bookkeeper, note taker separate, and they are truly just the hourly jobs that they should be, then I think you're okay either way of just saying, yep, it's this or combined, and it's a set hourly wage. For the administrative assistant, I think the current hourly wage that would be needed would probably push that position over our current annual budget for administrative stuff. What's difficult is like we do need that kind of role, and we're going to need it more and more as we continue to grow.
And so if we looked at doing an amended budget,
I think our issue right now with the current projected revenues was that because so much money was going to litigation this year, there was just a little bit coming out of the prior year's surplus. Just boil it down to that. But we would have to pull more from prior year surplus, and then I would really want to look at, is that a sustainable rate year over year, or do we really need to evaluate if we need to bring in additional revenue? Increasing taxes.
well, I would certainly hope we wouldn't find ourselves in another lengthy litigation. It's not like we went out and wanted to be sued or we sued anybody. So, I don't see us as this being a regular but line item budget,
Mhm.
so
Hope not.
budget line item. Oh,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of my thought on the financial aspect of it. That like note taker, bookkeeper, they're sustainable. I think they would be fine no matter what. But once you start adding that administrative assistant position, it looks a little different. And then certainly if we were to kind of like combine all three, then a salaried rate, that's going to be a lot easier for us to budget year over year because it is just a set amount with adjustments, pay increase adjustments. So,
well, then, just speaking very openly, then if it's not within our budget year to be able to add an admin, then I think the council needs to step up more, period. I don't see any other way around it because Erin cannot do the level of work with the time, I'm not phrasing that. Erin can do everything, but Erin shouldn't be doing everything. And if we want to keep staff, we cannot have the amount of work piled on someone. So I think what we need to seriously do is sit down and look at what our strengths are individually and what we can do to help out. And then get the amended budget done and look at where we are with litigation and cash flow. And so I guess that's my way of saying, everybody on the council take a good close look at what you realistically could help with. And then we could have a work session in December just to cover like what we need to do. Or we could have it over Thanksgiving week and I'll be gone. And
It sounded like some stuff that was coming in though was like staffs, I mean, stuff like people's medical forms and stuff and stuff like that. Like, is that the kind of town council stuff you want us to do? Because I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I guess. So, and then I guess my main thing with it is even if council steps up, I mean, that's great. I mean, but that's just talking about us on the call. We don't know who's coming in next year. Like, and so that's not like, this is purposefully not sustainable. Like, that position needs to be sustainable. And if she's got too much on her plate, then it's systematically broken. Like, and we need to do something to fix that in, like however that works.
Right.
But I'm concerned I agree that might be a great stopgap while we figure it out, but I just don't think it's going to help with the long-term sustainability of it.
I agree. And I think that, the other really helpful thing for all of us to be doing is saying, okay, like, I think the issue with my role is that there's so much that just like pops up throughout the day that like it's all these fires that we're just trying to put out left and right, that like the day-to-day stuff, while it can be documented and I can put the bullet lists together, I just need the time to like put it together to say, okay, admin assistant, you can help, or oh, hey, Luanne, and this week can you help me do X, Y, and Z? But right now it's going to take so much more time to like train someone to do it because it's not yet written down. And so, yeah. And the weird day-to-day stuff is really what's just been throwing me off.
Here's the classic spot where it's harder to delegate than it is to just do it yourself. And then you end up doing too much. Like,
Yeah. So I think from a high level, I don't want to continue without a bookkeeper. Or a note taker.
The bookkeeper has been blatantly clear in the last couple of weeks that we really need to get that position filled.
Yeah, no,
Well,
get it
yeah,
filled
and
and
that'll take a load off of you.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So
And
if we get those in the minutes, take care of.
so I think get those going as soon as we can. But then circle back to this other one though, because this other position still.
yeah,
is
that's
needed.
the pain point. So I think in hearing just a little bit, it sounds like maybe it would be best for us to post them separately, note taker, bookkeeper. I would say, like, let's see what applications we get. If there are people who are applying for both, who have the skill set for both, maybe, we do those interviews and see how those go, and then you kind of combine a role or modify a role. In my mind, the note taker wage rate is going to be just slightly lower. Bookkeeping is clearly a more skilled, experience is helpful. I would suggest that we keep that bookkeeper rate at what we originally posted at. well, then we'll post a range. I think it's important to post a range. I don't want to just say we're going to do it. So I think somewhere between like $20 to $24 an hour makes sense for me. And then for the note taker, I think I had a range of like 17 to 21 or something to that effect. Are you all comfortable with those types of ranges? I mean, you all know the area a lot better than I do, but
I mean,
are you comfortable with that?
you said you got a fair amount of bookkeepers on the last application round. How about note takers on the last?
I think because, well, so
'Cause it was one,
we
right?
had already combined it
That's right.
as,
That's
yeah.
right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, we already combined
So on the note taking,
it. Mhm.
everybody has to be, you just doing an hour-long meeting or something, so, but how much time do you allow for preparing the minutes? They have to listen to the meeting, and then they've got to prepare them. So is that kind of an unlimited, like, hour after hour, or do you say an hour or 2 hours to prepare them?
So what I think my expectation would be that, especially as someone is starting out in the role, there is a learning curve. Like you gotta be able to figure out like what are the important points. I know that there's a lot of us can just go ahead and like do a transcript effectively, but that is not what we're looking for. You got to be able to. So it usually takes a little bit of time to like dial it in, and so what I would like to see is someone who attends the meeting. You get the full hour there, and then it's going to be anywhere between like an hour to an hour and a half of editing time and getting it out. I think to start out, up to 2 hours, if it's an hour-long meeting, up to 2 hours is more than reasonable to do editing. But that comes back to the managerial role of holding, looking at the minutes, the timekeeping, and saying that, oh yeah, no, you were way off. We got to tighten this up, or you need approval. Or, if you're going over this number, it's not something I'm worried about at the start, but within a month or two, whoever the person reports to needs to kind of have that conversation. But, and then there are some meetings that are really detailed, like the planning and zoning meetings that just, it's super detail, data heavy. Yeah, those are always going to take more time. And so I think less of a concern there, but I think you can say like, we're expecting your your weekly hours to be between this and this. So it's not shocking if you're never surpassing 10 hours a week kind of thing, right? Or surpassing 8 hours a week. This is not a full-time role. It's not even a half-time role. It is, and that's why I think we combined it the first time. But I do think that those bookkeepers, I think we'll get more applications for bookkeepers if they don't have that note-taking piece as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, then it sounds like the rate's fine if you were getting applications last time, so the rate's probably okay.
And then would you all be okay if we do go ahead and post, spend the money to post it just all around so we can cast a wide net again? And are there any particular spots that you want to see it posted, both of them posted?
I can't remember everywhere we posted last time, but
Yeah, I clearly stand on record. I think we had done an electronic posting for like a Four Corners type of thing. Honestly, Navajo Times might be worth it just because, and I think we need to have probably not today, but just based on the applicants that we get, clearly in person is going to be preferred, but I do think even our bookkeeper could be like possibly partially remote. And the job descriptions I sent out would probably indicate that as well. Like there are times you need to be here. You cannot be like in Texas, but I think there are some remote aspects that might make it appealing.
well, and keep people from trying to pile on them if they're not around here to be piled onto.
With the bookkeeper, with the note taker, do we want to add to the tasks of posting to
I personally would.
it seems like that's an easy thing to do.
I would want them to do the postings. And I think we say like preferential that they are here to do like the physical postings too, but it would be negotiable. And I think that you even build that into like the rate. Like if you are remote most of the time and you aren't able to do the physical postings or be here in person to be physically at the meetings, then this is a remote role and maybe it's a 50-cent decrease off of what we would usually do or something like that.
I would say that having done the minutes
for 6 years, 2 hours is way off. I mean, it would take me 4 or 5. I realize I didn't do it on a computer, but like Jen just said, you're doing them, you're posting them, you're getting them to the council, then you redo them, whatever needs to be done after they're approved. If there's I mean, you have to at least take off the draft word, post them in 2 places. I mean, it would take me 4 or 5 hours, which included the actual meeting, to do the town council.
My concern with having remote for the note taker is that I think it takes more time if you have to listen to the tape or you're just doing the versus watching people and watching kind of the interactions. That tips off a lot of time, like how important a discussion is, where you can just listen to something virtually without seeing it, or listen to the tape. I prefer that we really not emphasize virtual. But that also gets to the point of the posting. If the person is virtual or remote part of the time, how are they going to post? Yeah. And so,
Well,
I mean, I think there's.
But we don't have office space. There's no office space for these people. So I think we do need to look at all of our options, but yeah, especially if we're doing them separately, we do not have the space to have all these people in office.
But having them here in the meetings is one thing. I mean, we don't need office space when we're all sitting here in meetings to take notes. So they could do that portion in person and work on editing and stuff like that
Remotely.
out of office. So kind of a hybrid type.
How about hybrid working? I'll figure out the hybrid working condition, hybrid working potentially available. I just don't want to limit our pool of applicants.
I mean, it's kind of expected now. Like, if you've got something that can be remote, like, it's hard to take it when, when you can be remote, it's hard to take a job to be in person. Like,
Okay, so what if it gets more confusing? But my concern would be that someone doesn't listen. They're not on the meeting. They're working a full-time other job and they get home at 8 at night and they're going to listen to the audio. Those audios are not clear.
Oh, I wouldn't count that as note taking though. I would say you have to be present for the meeting, like even if it's online. Like I didn't think note taking was just showing up later.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have to be really clear then that
yes,
you're present one way or another, because that to me is so much of it.
I agree, and it's hard, when you go. And I'll speak to this from my other position. It's hard sometimes to say, I couldn't understand what you guys said in that recording,
Yeah, it can't be based off the recording.
Yeah,
it needs to be there.
I think if it's an emergency type situation, that's something to fall back on, but it's not something that should be regular. I think that that person needs to be.
Well, and
excused absence kind of thing.
I really don't want to be combative, and I know we need to move on, but if we're asking someone to just show up for our note taking, we are working around someone else's schedule or it is going to be very difficult to find someone who is available Tuesdays at 4, Wednesdays at 6 p.m., and anytime we want to hold a work session. That just, I think that's an unreasonable expectation. And so I can definitely work something in here that, preference is going to be in person. It can be an interview question, so we understand like what we're working around for them, but just realistically, and I think that is part of the reason that the note taker bookkeeper was originally combined, because we wanted it to be pretty much a part-time, a quote, like full-time, part-time position, 20 to 30 hours a week, that it was actually worth it for someone to show up. I think a note taker, they're looking for a little extra income. They may not be available the times that we have meetings. In fact, I think if they were, they'd probably be sitting on council or planning and zoning right now.
Maybe.
Well, and I think that in person, virtually, or in person sitting here with YouTube and with being able to log in and stuff, I think makes it easier. too than just listening to the recording. And once, if it's somebody that's familiar that has already been to a lot of our meetings, it'll be easier than somebody who doesn't have a clue of what Bluff's even doing. That would be a big learning curve, I think.
I mean, this is fishing. I mean, you can't fish without throwing a line. So I know I'm throw the line out. If it doesn't work, we'll come back and talk again. But I
figure it
mean,
out.
we're just trying to predict what this person would do. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well-
That's what I'd say. I'd say advertise it and let's see what happens.
See what happens.
Okay, take a look at the job descriptions I sent over, disregard the combo one for right now. And then I will get realistically, we will be having interviews after Thanksgiving anyway. But I can get them posted over the next week or so, and then we'll just see what we get. And then I might send direct messages to the bookkeepers that we had apply the first time around, just so they know the job's open again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely not like preference. It's more just trying to figure out the best. Like bookkeeper is more important, so let's focus on getting that done, and then we'll figure out the note taker part. But I definitely don't want the note taker part to skunk us out of getting good bookkeepers.
I appreciate that, and I think
So.
that's okay. All right, bookkeeper first.
But advertise them both, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we ready to move on to 3? The discussion of logistics and needs for a building inspector contract for San Juan County. So did everybody get a copy and have a chance to look at it of the agreement that was floated from San Juan County? And did everyone get the fee schedule, which was not attached to the first?
I don't know if folks did. Let me forward that on.
I didn't see a fee.
See a fee schedule.
Yeah, it came separately. I don't know if it was just, I don't know. Yeah, it came in a separate email.
No, sorry.
Are they doing this with Blanding in Monticello too?
I think Blanding might already have their own building inspector. I think
Their own building inspector.
in my meeting with them, I think maybe Monticello does have a similar type contract, but don't hold me to that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Monticello is doing the same thing.
I will say I got a call from Chris today, and he is looking over this as well. The one thing that I wanted to make sure is clear in here is that under 1.05, don't necessarily need them to attend town council meetings, but they sure should be able to attend planning and zoning meetings when necessary. So I wanted that added. And I think that I want to be very clear with this fee schedule that we are just looking at the building inspection part. I think that's clarification I need from the county, that it's just the building inspection. We are not interested in the county taking on any of those other items.
Which were
At the bottom here.
So,
Any of the planning fees.
yeah, so what I think was that they just did not take that out. That it's just simply the building fees. None of the rest of this apply to what we're doing.
And for us, this would just be kind of a straight pass through to the end user, like the end user would be paying these fees. But we do need to provide the person to input the data into the county's system. And right now the county is changing, I believe they're changing their software.
And there is going to be a potential cost to that change to us. So depending on which day you're talking to and who you're talking to at San Juan County, there's a change in the system, there's a change in the cost. No, there's no cost to us. That's not anywhere close to being nailed down as far as I could tell, which is why I took the words and vote, because we're not ready to vote on this at all. I sent it off to Chris because he hadn't seen it and it requires his review. Excuse me, he asked me a couple questions about it as well. And given the priority of what we have, this was not my highest priority for us. which San Juan County wanted in on the next county commission meeting to approve, and
Is it,
Kristen Bushnell was fine with moving it off of that, so we can have some time to look at it and talk about it. Jen?
I was just wondering if that was up against the state deadline for, I don't think it is though.
For the subdivision
No.
or the building inspection
Building
thing?
inspection stuff.
That will go into play regardless of whether we have an agreement or not.
and we don't, there weren't any land use clearances at the last planning and zoning, but that's where you have a little more pressure. Because if somebody's trying to build something and you've got to get, you know.
That's what I was thinking, that like, it's kind of nice to know exactly what is going on because you know that they've passed all of the other things that we need them to do before the information for the building inspection is even entered into the county system. I think the county, I don't know, it's been a minute, but it seems like the county has not had as many requests where they're trying to circumvent the town's planning and zoning commission. But this is a sure way to ensure that that doesn't happen. But we are seeing it all. But I agree from an administrative standpoint, we are taking on additional costs. And I wonder if we could put something in the scope of services under 2.02 that would, it says that the county will provide the communication software, but also say like software and cost, right? Like they will pay for our person's subscription to whatever they're using.
Well, that's a really good point because that's a piece they've done
Waffling.
on. It goes back and forth. This started back in somewhere around December of last year, where Kristen Bushnell completed this draft of the agreement in, she said, January 26, provided it to administration, and it hasn't funneled down to us. And the frustration level, I think, was just there, like, let's get it moving. But because San Juan County is frustrated, we need to take time to make sure that we don't sign off on this and then they come back and say, oh, but we never talked about the cost that you have to buy into this computer system, because that was a part of what my conversation had been with Mac early on in the winter last year.
That should probably just be a percentage to each permit or something, because that seems a little bit open-ended.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. If the applicant is having to go through our master fee schedule, do we just build on a percentage? Yeah.
Well, I think it's something we would look at amending our fee schedule to build in administrative time on our end and our costs, because they're not going to build that in to the San Juan County part of it, which is why, again, we had to have more time. It was not going to work to be able to pass this off for the next commission meeting.
And so you're proposing they just X the whole planning fees chart, that whole section is planning fees?
That bottom section, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then keep just building fees, which is what we needed.
Right. I don't think that it was ever the intent of the county to do the bottom half. It was just that when I said to Kristen Bushnell, hey, I don't see the fees here, she said, well, it's the same one we talked about when I started this. So she just sent over their attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
I'd be interested too. They've got that sign permit, and their fees are quite a bit higher because for business signs, the stability of the actual structure is probably pretty important. We do not have anything like that in our sign permitting process. So
I also like the legal review fee.
me too.
So, this would be a good thing for us to be looking at our fee schedule when we look at this in kind of a final form after Chris has looked at it, and then we talk about it. And based on my communications with Mac McDonald, it looks like this is how, rather than having one interlocal agreement that covers everything, we're going to piecemeal it, one department at a time. which is not that big a deal. It might be easier in some ways.
Easier to get things passed and started.
And be able to go back and revise them versus having to revise something. It's one paragraph in the big agreement
Yeah,
and then
totally.
get into the weeds on something else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this will come back to us, but Chris McEnany will look at it and then we can talk about it and hopefully come up with something that we can approve. Any other thoughts on this, or shall we move to number 4, strategic planning progress update?
Well, I guess just for clarification, what we have in place now is people still just have to go find their own building inspector.
No, what we have now is if you get a land use clearance here, somebody correct me if I'm saying this wrong, you get the land use clearance with our planning and zoning, then if Jen's building, she goes up to San Juan County and gets the permit and then pays the fees up there, and the inspection takes place by San Juan County down here.
Mm-hmm.
They don't
And
have to go,
somebody now. Mm-hmm.
which is what the one piece is under that new law, new legislation, within 3 days, I believe it is, if you can't get a building inspection, then there should be a qualified list of inspectors in your area to be able to do, which of course, if San Juan County could get building inspectors, we wouldn't need to, that were hired by the county, we wouldn't need to have a list. But right now, it's still working the same way.
Okay, but there was a gap there for a while, so that's good.
So strategic planning progress update. Anybody want to start? Okay, I'll start. So because we've had multiple discussions about, looking at the kind of the green space area, protecting parks and doing things and assets. And we all know that we have Barwell sitting there that we own behind the Bears Ears Partnership Building. There's been a kind of an ongoing discussion about whether or not there's any encumbrance, any restrictive covenant about sale or anything. There is none. I went up, did a title search greatly with the help of Stacy. What's her last name? Steele. She was amazing. And we were able to go all the way back on the title, which I won't bore everybody with, but there's nothing that's a restrictive covenant. So when we're talking about all the buildings and the land that the town owns, whatever the town wants to do with it, like if you want to keep it a green space and actually do something with it, or you want to have an idea like Jen had with Dark Skies with partnership with Bears Ears Partnership to use that space, if you wanted to sell it, we don't have any restrictions. So that's part of the strategic plan is looking at our green space and the areas that we've protected. And then I've continued to work on the sole source aquifer. I realized yesterday when I was talking with Erin, I thought it was pretty much ready to submit the application draft to the EPA, but there were a couple sections that were left with SEE section something of the instructions, so I have to go back and catch those. But I think those are the two things I think those are the two things I'm trying to squeeze in.
Yeah, so helped Ann a little bit with the sole source aquifer thing. I've been, because I'm married to her, helping Sarah with the dark sky stuff because that's it's just such a beast of a document. Been helping her a little bit on that and going to help her a lot more because she just needs some support. And then there's a fair amount of overlap with my day job going on right now with some of this stuff, but I don't know if everybody's seen Sand Island construction has started. So that's all going down there. Finish up the Bluff River Trail, which would be great. $500,000 investment down there. So,
Wow.
but that's going. It should be completed in the next couple months, and that'll finish up that part at least of the Bluff River Trail, and that'll be all signed and everything and done and buttoned up. by spring for sure. So.
Right. Back to the dark skies, that's a good point. Sarah Barak called today, asked what the best way of sending that information out to the council would be. So there are some gaps that we need to fill in. So if you haven't gotten it in the next couple of days, you'll be getting in. She asked if it was best to send an email, a PDF, whatever, or she was working in Google Docs. And I confessed that I hate Google Docs, but I thought for the purposes of consistency with planning and zoning, several of you use Google Docs. I'm the archaic one that gets stuck in the middle of it, doesn't know what I'm doing. But I think for everybody else, it works. So I asked her to use the Google Doc. Which means, sadly, that I'll probably be asking someone to help me figure it out today. I tried to go into Malia's document to make a comment, and let's just put it this way. Malia had to show me how to do it while I was standing next to her while I was telling her, so it was not efficient. Jen?
And then BWW stuff. That's the last of my stuff.
And the next meeting is?
21st. I
Yes.
think the 21st. Yeah.
Is that what you said?
2 to 6.
Okay, we just got an email.
Just got an email.
Today?
No, a couple.
yeah,
last
I-
week or
maybe.
something.
In the last couple of days, but, let's see, here it is.
2 o'clock on the 21st?
Yep, the 21st, 2 to 6.
11:21 at 2:30. Oh, wait,
I have it 2 to 6.
2 to 6, yes.
2 to
That
6
was Melissa's.
on the
that said she
21st.
couldn't join until it.
2 to 6 on the 21st?
Yes,
Yes. Yep.
And did you find the location?
it's at the Desert Rose.
It is.
And I did just post on UPN today the minutes from the last QED
Okay.
strategic plan session. So if anyone wants to take a look at those, they're on there.
Thank you.
So I guess that segues into me, and I have been working as well on that. We haven't really developed a year-round calendar of events. We have been working on with business owners of Bluff, trying to find some more events to bring into the community during the off-season. Our latest is we're moving forward on Dark Sky Festival at the end of February. I think that's moving along well. Diana's very gung-ho and enthusiastic, and she keeps us moving in a good direction. So we'll be looking at adding that event. Like I said, I believe it's the last weekend of February. It's whenever the new moon is in February, and I'm pretty sure it's the last weekend.
Is it like a 2-night event or?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we're hoping to get the programming enough. We're looking at some different stuff, which might be kind of cool, like maybe bringing a Star Tour professional in, or, I would like also for that to encompass some ways that the local businesses can, take advantage of astrotourism, some simple things. I kind of hope that we can do some kind of workshop or something with them in ways that they can promote astrotourism in their own businesses, to help make Dark Skies more attractive to the businesses as well. So there's that aspect. The Star Tours, for sure, we've been talking with Sarah's on that as well. We also want to bring in the native perspective. I think that's a really important and unique thing that we have that other areas around don't take advantage of. So we'll be looking at doing some kind of probably winter sky stories from the Navajo perspective, and just some other, I don't know. We're still on the planning and developing side. That's that. But as for getting a year-round calendar, we still need to work on that. So I don't really know. Erin seems to, you do. I think we do a pretty good job of coordinating between the two websites.
Well, so
The
it's funny
calendars
because
as it
I
is.
got a good public comment that I will forward to all of you so you can get folks' impression of our collaboration.
Okay.
So I'll send that out.
Okay.
And I'll post it on our website too.
Perfect.
Was that a recent one?
Yes. Received on Saturday.
Anything else, Jen? that-
I'm trying to go through my list here. Trying to help with bookkeeping. That doesn't have anything to. Well, that does kind of. I mean, with the bookkeeping stuff, we're going to be working on the policy and procedures, which is high on the strategic plan list. So we've been trying to nail down how we can make those a little more clear cut. I don't know what else.
Lou?
Yeah, mine comes up on the next meeting, on a regular scheduled meeting, but working with the highway trail with UDOT and the active transportation plan, we still don't have anything scheduled yet. It could be this next week, but we're trying to get the active transportation committee meeting going, and Malia's has asked the UDOT, there's a new leader, a new project manager for this stretch down here for that big grant, from the federal grant, to come and update and let us know where they're at and when that project will start and all that kind of thing. But it's not scheduled yet, but it was kind of looking in that same week, the 21st, somewhere in there. So I'll update you about that. And let's see. Oh, and then the December 3rd, I mentioned that at the end of the meeting last week, but December 3rd is when UDOT's doing their trail meeting and their regional planning up in Moab. So we're all kind of on hold on this end. And I don't know, but working on Fire Kitchen, I swing by there and that kind of thing. But anyway, that's all that's substantively.
Okay. Linda?
I am also working on the strategic planning with BWW.
Great. That's a nice time commitment, so thanks all of you. I do think that the suggestion pathways made that we do this once a month kind of is keeping us in focus on some of these major strategic planning pieces. If nothing else, it's a really good guilt-producing mechanism, like what haven't I done and what can I get done? All right, then number 5 is discuss the date for a public hearing on the recreational vehicle ordinance and subdivision ordinances. And other would be the limited animal ordinance and the Jake breaking limited noise ordinance. And I just have not had time to kind of put those together. Both of those may or may not, well, they're not going to be on this public hearing. I'll just say that. And I am working on it, but I haven't had time to really sit down and devote much time. So I'm looking at probably bringing them out to all of you in January at a work session, having some discussion. I think the Jake breaking, if I were to read the community correctly, is a no-brainer. I think it's the limited animal ordinance that will cause a fair amount of discussion. So rather than trying to push myself into one more area and add on to this public hearing, I thought January is just a better time to do it. So Erin, we've gone back and forth with planning and zoning, right, on a specific date.
Yeah, and I would be curious if you all, I think it's the December 4th date.
That's what it looks like it was.
That was the last thing I saw,
December 4th at 5 p.m.
which is Wednesday, December 4th, and at 5 p.m. You said, okay.
It's the stretch of time before their regular scheduled meeting.
Gotcha. Okay. Is an hour going to be enough?
I don't think so, but
So either.
yeah, I didn't want, I figured to get the date, and then I think that the subdivision ordinance is really long and detailed. If there's public comment, there probably isn't going to be that much, but it's people understanding what that subdivision ordinance is. But I think there is, the RV ordinance could be a lot of public comment and a fair amount of discussion. So
Took up quite a bit of time even in our last joint session.
Did planning and zoning indicate whether it would be maybe like in lieu of, or maybe they could have just like a short meeting to cover land use clearances? Like, did they have a lot of other working things to get through during that meeting that anyone knows of yet?
I don't know.
Because that would be my suggestion, is just go ahead and schedule it for an hour and a half, and then planning and zoning can just do a short half-hour meeting to cover any administrative business that needs to happen from 6:30 to 7.
I can reach out to Amanda and ask her.
Not to set their schedule, but
Well, you know, the problem is that, well, it's not a problem. It's easier to fill time with dead silence and taking a break than it is to have people who don't get to make their public comment. And then that extends, they've got the 10 days following that for written public comment, and then you're going to end up with a potentially much more written comment than you would have liked if you could have just heard it and asked your questions.
Yeah, so when we finished the last meeting, it was just going to be comments received on the hearings and start discussing what changes they needed to make before and they were going to work on their schedule for next year. And the day of the week might need to change for to meet a couple of people's schedules. That was all that was on the agenda for so far.
so their biggest issue would be discussing the comments and making modifications
From
which-
that hearing.
From the hearing.
So maybe my thought is wrong on this, but wouldn't planning and zoning also be discussing the interviews they conducted and making a recommendation?
That would be this next meeting.
That's this
That would
next
be
meeting.
December 4th,
Okay,
because that would be the 20th, I think.
okay.
Yeah, November 20th.
Yeah. that'll
Okay,
be when
good.
that happens.
Mhm.
So another thing on the ordinance is, I don't know, it seems like the airport overlay needed to have, it seemed like it had a deadline also, and it doesn't, not sure where that one ended up.
It is not moving at this point because while there may be a state deadline, there is absolutely no ramification to us at this point, and it had to take a back seat to everything else.
So I just,
The county is working on doing the big overlay, and we kind of fit into that. The other piece of it is I haven't heard back from the BLM on my questions related to it because of the positioning of the airport. So when you read through the pertinent parts of that overlay, because we don't have any of the things that caused the plan to kick into remedies, it is the lowest priority of our ordinances right now until we get some questions answered and get some work done from the county so we can see what direction it is. A lot of it has to do with if you're going to put a building up or a structure up within 500 feet or 1,000 feet or whatever, you have to have all these things in place. Well, that's BLM land, it's the gravel pit, there's nowhere somebody's going to construct anything.
well, that corner there is for sale.
But
That's-
it's for sale. If somebody were to come in and say, I'm making a cash offer today, then we have zoning in place and they'd have to go through us anyway. And then we could have Chris write it quickly. But given that we're so enmeshed in some things that have really high priority. Now, if people disagree with me, you can tell me and I can kick it up to the top, but
My main thing is that we got to get, anything to get leverage for the BLM to even start at least engaging with us on how to manage the airport, because it has been just dead silence every time we've asked for help. So stuff like this is like, was this Jake Palma you wrote to?
Yeah.
Can you CC me or send it to me?
no, I'll send it to you, yeah.
Okay, because there's just been dead radio silence from them on, so the airport is going to be a problem, not just with the overlay, but the expansion, all this stuff. We don't know any of what we can do without them answering some basic questions. So part of Ann and I's thinking when we talked about it was we have a laundry list of stuff to ask them about, so let's keep piling on it, like for them to get back,
For the management plan.
even past the management plan. Like, we're basically asking Jake to tell us who to talk to. If you don't want to talk to us, who do we talk to? And it's just been nothing from them. So we're trying to pile on, basically. So now we've got this issue. We had the issue with people low flying and all that's camping out there. BLM law enforcement out. So it was like we had all these issues. So we just tagged this one on as another part of an example of why we need them to respond to us.
So,
It's disheartening to hear they haven't.
yeah, and so like the camping, I did hear a little bit of that go by since Jim's the airport manager, but the only people that camp out there are the ones that are camping with their planes. They can camp with them as a security thing.
Well, totally.
But-
I mean, that's totally fine. But like,
But what was the question of camping?
Well, it's
So
just
my-
one more thing that they haven't
Well, they got-
responded to.
yeah, and they got called up. I mean, like BLM law enforcement from,
Yeah, and-
from Moab was down here. They don't come down here for no reason.
And my understanding, and it might be flawed, my understanding is according to the BLM, no one is to be camped out there. And the FAA, when we asked about putting kennels out there, they
Right.
said, no, nothing out there. No, it's an airport, period. We need clarification, and I'm really sorry to raise this one, but with this election, we're going to see a whole lot more of unanswered questions with the BLM situation. And right now, since there is no way, even if that land sold tomorrow, that a 5-story structure is going to be put up tomorrow morning, we've got time. And in prioritizing, until we get some answers from the BLM on that airport, and where we are with it, trying to write an overlay for something that we don't have anything that's going to give us a negative, is a repercussion always a negative? Anyway, give us something negative. It just went to the bottom of my pile of priorities on
Well, and
ordinances.
if it is 5 stories that you're looking at, that's already regulated in.
Right. Well, that's my point, Lou. We've got so much in place right now to worry about one more unfunded mandate, fill in the pause, mandate from anybody. We've got to prioritize those things that we can logistically
As long as there's
get done.
not a deadline or something that we're just not responding to, that would be my concern. But I know Marcia in the last, or whenever it got discussed a few meetings ago, she said something about the county doing the overlay and had already done our overlay and whatnot. So just so long as we're not.
No. Kristen Bushnell has been in contact. They're working on it. She'll send it when it's out. It may be something we automatically can tack into. I don't know. And again, we need to keep in mind that the airport is a very weird animal in that there are only 2 in the county, and we don't do commercial, and it's in the Bears ears right now, and it's BLM, and there's just too much to sort through when we're trying to.
And I have never seen such a absolute, I don't think they know who to call. Like, I don't know that they know. I think we've got such a particular set of questions and overlays here that we've skunked them. And so we're just I don't know. We got a lot of answers.
Just
for
so it didn't
the
get
airport.
lost under the pile.
It's
No,
not
it
lost.
was-
It's on the list. It's just not. And again, I will make it a priority if the council wants to make it one. But
Well, it sounds like it's in the works, so that's.
I think it's important. Feel like it's going.
so,
It's been frustrating. So
yeah.
It has.
Well, the whole management, like you say, the whole management plan and the whole thing will.
I'll just start all over again.
Oh, yeah, that's happening.
So I do have one other. Today, Mountain Joe's Trail Ride stopped in, and his name is Joel, Joel, not Joe, but he goes by Mountain Joe with no L because it sounds better. They do mountain rides in LaSalle. He was directed to us by the fort because he got a grant from the San Juan Economic Development for $20,000. And what he wants to do is house some horses in Bluff. Marks Powell's already said he can put a couple horses there apparently, and just do little rides through town. And then what he was directed, so he's going to work with the fort because he wants to tap into the fort's buses that come in, and he's got some wagons, but he wanted to know if there was a regulation that would prohibit it. And I'm not aware that we have any regulation that would prohibit people riding horses in town, and in fact, we have people who ride horses in town. So I said, unless somebody tells me otherwise, my immediate response is, we don't have a regulation. You need a business license if you're doing business because we want the money from it. But because there was nothing in our animal ordinance that the draft that was from 2 or 3 years ago,
Except
and we never
for-
passed
Oh,
anything?
well, if we haven't passed it, there is something that says you can't have more than 2 large animals. So if you're gonna do trail rides, you're gonna have to have more than 2 horses. But
Yeah, that, and the only piece I'm working on in the animal ordinance is pulling out the dogs at large to, in fact, in part satisfy San Juan County deputies so they're not frustrated. And I'm not fielding 2 dog complaints every week. So anything, any other, and do we want to take a break or just keep going and wrap up? It's 5:13.
I'm fine to keep going.
yeah, me too.
Fine to keep going. So do we need to adjourn?
Keep
this one?
rolling.
So motion to,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
I'm
All right. Anyone opposed? All right, so then we will just jump into our regular meeting. So it is, did we lose Craig?
No, he's still
Okay.
there.
So it is 5:14 PM. Today is November 12th, 2024. So since nobody even left the table, we're all still here. Linda's still online. Erin hasn't left. So I'm going to skip roll call and go right to to the public comment. There will be a 3-minute time limit for each public comment. If you exceed the time limit, the meeting controller will mute you. Either raise your hand or put your name in the chat box. Excuse me. The only other person in the room is Malia Collins. Is there anyone online, Erin, who wants to make a public comment?
I don't see anyone online who's indicating that they want to make a public comment.
Give it 1 second. In order to keep moving, let's give it till the end of the approval of the meeting minutes, and if no one jumps on, then we'll close it off and just go into the business meeting. So the first thing is the approval of the October 15th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Has everybody received them? Are there any changes or corrections?
Motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from October 15th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then the approval of October 29th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Has everybody seen those? Are there any changes, any corrections?
Motion to approve October 29th, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Approval of the October 29th, 2024 executive session meeting minutes.
We approve those? I thought we usually just filed them.
We have just been filing them
We're supposed
after
to
everybody's read them. And I'm in a quandary because that would assume that if somebody had a correction, they would make it here, which would violate.
Right.
Yeah,
So I am going to take that off and talk to Chris, because even though that's what the directions are, I don't know how you do
Do
that.
it.
Because we've always just gone back, when we go back into executive session, if somebody has a correction, gets made. So I will,
One thing that what we've done is, we've just filed them, but if someone, like there've been a couple times that Lou has wanted an addition, and so I've added it. And I believe sent it out with her addition. So,
thanks. I'll clarify with Chris what exactly that process is. I might actually call the Utah League. I've got a couple other things for them, so I might just call them and save us a little bit of attorney's fees as their attorney. Then moving to, everybody remind me when I'm doing that. Approval of November 5th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Has everybody received them, read them, and are there any corrections or changes?
Motion to approve November 5th, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. All right, moving to old business then. Discussion and vote on the energy development block grant applications. Those would be the two that we talked about in the work session for the Bluff Community Center lights, and then the cooperative cultural centers beefed up interior improvements. Does anybody have any further questions on those grants? They need to be submitted by the 15th.
I motion to submit both of the grants. Sorry, I'm trying to find the exact wording. Energy development grants as presented by Erin Nelson and Malia Collins.
Second.
Any further discussion? Then all in favor say aye. 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 Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then number 2 is discussion and vote on the solar panel moving and storage. Malia Collins.
Right back to me. Hello again. So I have met with Alan Newman, I believe that's how you say his last name, about moving the solar panels from Monticello to Bluff. Considered we get a spot to store them. And he gave us a quote of $2,400 to pick up the solar panels. They have a forklift. They will put them onto their machine, bring it down here, also use a forklift to unload it wherever it is that we determine that we want those to go. I've chatted with Lou about a couple of spots, and I actually have a follow-up question for you that I'll chat with you about. And the inverter invoice has been received and will be picked up next week and paid for by Ann and Erin in Salt Lake. So getting another step closer with our inverter. If anyone has any other ideas of where to store the panels.
What's on the table now? Like last week heard, or it was like we were still talking about like if it could be a pole barn, if it could be mixed outside. Where have y'all landed?
That's about where we still are. Is
Okay.
Can they be outside? Can they be should they be inside? What's our concern with people coming by and taking them?
And they have to have a semi and a
Yeah,
forklift.
they
so
have to
I
have a
don't
semi
worry
and a
about it.
forklift, so.
Incognito with a semi and a worker.
So how many tons of cheese were lifted in France?
Yeah, but those are a little easier to tell. Solar
That's the
panels
French
that are huge.
Well, does it make sense to kind of break this into, like, vote on spending the money to get them moved? And
I mean, we can vote on, yeah, like it can be, that way you're ready to ship when we do find the place. That can be done.
What's the
But
timing on the shipping? When's he got it available?
That's a great question. I didn't get that because he was still waiting for me to tell him where we were going to take it. So I think they're waiting on us.
so I don't feel like we have a lot of options. I think we just take one of the ones that didn't work and hope nothing, hope that there's no person who gets together and moves them. So
I'd put them at the CCC, just basically out back, and then put like a game camera somewhere, and be good enough for me. It's locked, middle of town. But
what we could do is vote to approve the move and leave it to the manager's discretion as to where the best place is. You know, and if she comes up with something else,
We'd have to talk about it.
great.
Well, we could go over to DRC too, if we're gonna do it at the CCC,
Right, and then you've got.
and they'll be fine. Most
I'd say
likely.
that's a little more risky. But,
I'd
I
be
mean, they,
honest, I don't think we should store anything on that site until we have some other stuff resolved with our partners.
that's kind
And
of
we're buying the panels, like, well, the donations to Town of Bluff, the inverter we are purchasing outright until we
where's
have
the
a.
other, that's what I was asking at the beginning, so what's the other option? Where we put them? Because that's the only reason I said it, is because it's a lock gate, and I don't wanna put them just right here,
No.
but we can do that too.
Well, they'd be in the way.
Yeah, I mean,
We've got a couple spots that they could be out of the way. And
Yeah, they'd be on private property, not town property.
well, that's what I'm saying, is you're on your
yeah,
place?
but
Okay, I didn't know.
Uh,
you're
Do we have an insurance issue if we're storing something in private property?
Storm at Barwell, put up a fence. Oh, no.
No, I like that idea.
We gotta figure out how to secure them, but. Because they're not gonna fit in our little storage out here. Probably too big for that.
And what could happen? Like, what are you insuring? Are you insuring the?
The tree doesn't fall on them.
Right,
Well,
but-
you know, there are things that can happen to the solar panels where they get damaged. I
Right.
mean, so I think,
So if you might lose a couple or something, or like, there's not a big investment, I hate to say it, but there's not a big investment in them. You're not standing to lose a lot, even if they all walked off.
I'm really stunned that you would even say that. Given how you usually are, that's just not like, that is not a
Well, I've
Lou
lived here
Ann.
for a long time, I just can't see them walking away or anything happening. I mean, hail damage, you know, but they're packaged and they're wrapped up and stuff, so.
Well, to keep this moving, do we have an agreement, a consensus that we could just vote on? Yes, we're going to pay the money to move them, they're gonna get moved, and we can all weigh in with Malia individually, and she can pick it, and we'll hold her harmless if something happens.
Yeah, so a motion to approve the contract for moving the solar panels down from Monticello to Bluff. I can't remember the name of the contractor.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I'm,
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous.
So one question or one comment that I had that I mentioned to Malia, but we need to do an analysis of where they can all go, and where we can put them all, whether they be over there or whether they're on here. Like, you look at the bills and you see how many you need, how you're gonna hook it up, all that would be helpful, I think, to know from the local electrician. If not, there's some other ones that could do that full analysis. So we have how many documents we need, what we can do with them.
Well, if we could move forward with any of our grants on the CCC, we might actually get that done. And right now, we are totally stalled, period. So, yes, that analysis,
But they could be, the analysis could just be for this building.
right, that's exactly it. And that's probably where we're gonna end up going right now.
It
So-
could be a study, you know, of what we do, but anyway, that needs to happen. And the same with the generator, we need to get an analysis of when you have this big thing, do you plug it right into the back of the building? Does it go right into our power system? Is it something that we're just gonna run extension cords from, like?
Okay, so
Which one we do this?
let's move that analysis of those two things to another meeting.
Okay.
So that, they're really good points, Lou. So let me make a note.
There is a energy audit for this building and the CCC scheduled on December 6th, and that'll be a step forward on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they may be the ones that could help tell you how many solar panels you need and look at the solar and be able to tell what trade that would be, because they're not all the same.
Yeah, because that will be Rocky Mountain Power, so.
Yeah, so they should be able to do it.
Okay, so
Thank you,
we're gonna
Malia.
keep moving so that we don't go to past
Did you
6 o'clock.
finish your vote?
Oh, didn't-
Yep.
oh, thank you.
I motioned, I got a second.
Yeah.
Motion and second.
So you're
I
gonna
thought we did.
We
No,
just
Did
didn't
you-
vote.
Yeah, I don't think you got
you're
your
gonna
eyes.
call the question.
okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I'm gonna check that. I think we did.
I might be wrong.
It's like we've been here an hour and a half already.
It would have been interesting if somebody had been, okay. So, planning and zoning, report on November 6th meeting. Lou?
Well, we'll skip 3.
Yeah, number 3 is the design
Dear
review.
Oh,
Sorry.
this, yeah.
Settle down, man.
Okay, okay, so number 3 is the report on the November 7th, 2024 design review committee meeting.
You want to take this one?
Sure, we had attendance from all of the town council, DRC members being Britt, myself, Malia. Erin was not available. Janet Sloman, she was available on the call. She actually spoke to us this time. I think Malia has her direct quote. She explained that they had fired their previously hired lawyer. She used the cause that he was not licensed in Utah as the reason as why they dismissed Mr. Dave
Milky.
Milky. They were looking for a new attorney. Where do we have our direct quote? Okay. Ms. Luman, she assured us that when she hears anything, she will keep us informed. And it is important to acknowledge at this time that they want to have clarification. It's not about throwing a monkey wrench into the whole thing. It's about wanting to make sure that we understand and if we have any concerns, how we will handle them. And this will help us to decide what to do to move forward or not to move forward. It's for the pure reasons of wanting to understand the situation. Why they're stalling. Nice. So we discussed that. We discussed the tree trimming. The tree trimming happened this weekend. The community center, the CCC looks beautiful.
It looked really good.
Yeah, the lawn is cleaned up. They did a nice job. The wood is stacked under the basketball standards. So yay for moving forward in that department. And that was about it.
They're back without representation or anybody to talk to on this. We're 2 steps back again.
So my problem with that explanation is that should have happened before they signed on the EPA grant with us, when we had everybody in the building, we were all sitting there.
The agreement is easy to read. It's super easy, like
We
all of
were
this.
there and went through the whole yay or nay on the EPA grant.
They've been given time and time again. This is I don't think the case. So I don't think this is the reasons that they're doing it. It's just the reasons they're saying they're doing it.
So as a lawyer, I will tell you that if I am in a firm and there's a licensed attorney in the state of Utah, then that licensed attorney signs on as pro hoc vice, and I can proceed in the state of Utah even if I hold a Colorado license. So that is absolutely, and I'm going to say it, BS. We are at a frustration point of no return here. We are getting zero cooperation. In fact, we are now moving to the negative cooperation from Utah to Nabakea. We have an EPA call on Monday because we have not spent down money.
Mhm.
So we need to push forward and we need to call it as it is. Lou, you're absolutely correct. That reason is
Well,
long gone.
we did send the letter of breach of contract, correct?
It did. It went,
Chris said,
Increase your volume on you guys on this.
sorry.
Sorry, thanks.
so Chris did send the letter of breach of contract to Utah to Nabakea after our meeting last Thursday.
and there was a response from Hank Stevens saying he too was frustrated. He told Chris in an email. And then there was and that went to all the board members, and the response from Janet Somanchi was a letter from Malcolm Lehigh saying essentially that Hank Stevens is no longer on the board of directors of Utah Diné-Bikéyah. They removed him and speak only to Malcolm Lehigh. As of now,
I would love to speak to Malcolm Lehigh on the DRC if he would show up.
At
That would be rad.
Yep, at 5:33 right now, Chris has not had a response from Malcolm, and he has reached out. So we are moving in a negative direction, you know.
What happened with Davis? Was he still on the board?
Don't know. We've gotten no update. We asked specifically for an update and got no update.
We have to ask, like, oh, we thought you had a meeting last weekend. What happened? And this is what we got. So,
Well,
yeah, I mean, it's bad.
So
So we'll continue. We've got another one. Is it Thursday?
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday at 1. We'll be there. So
bring your donuts.
we don't have time to eat them. It's over before we can eat a donut.
get donut holes. But it'll be faster. Okay, then now moving to number 4, report on the November 6, 2024 planning and zoning meeting. Luke.
Yes, so they did meet in the first subdivision ordinance. Hanson Group wasn't there, but they had sent all their comments and they had worked it through. One question they had was needing a qualified soils engineer to check out your dirt, which probably doesn't apply in Bluff, but they were going to put in a little phrase of required or waived by, required if not waived by P&Z or something to that effect. There's a question about street grading and surfacing because like the state rules say you pave and curb and gutter and all the rest, and since we don't do that anyway, they wanted to take that out, but wanted to have the road up to the level that we have I believe it'll be the C roads, the C road classification, so that we can take care of it. They'll be to that standard. They have to give them to the town, roads do. They have to make them for their subdivision, but then they have to give them to the town in another whole process. But that was a question that they wanted to add in. But otherwise, it was ready to pass on, so that was good. And then the RV ordinance, Malia made a new chart, and Marcia worked on that to make it easier to see if you're in a certain certain zoning, A1, A2, C1, C2, so on, what you can do with an RV park, a mobile home park. Right now, they're both mixed together, and mobile home and RVs in this ordinance. And let's see. Yeah, there weren't any LUCs, land use clearances, there were none. And then they did do the interviews. They had 3 applicants, but 1 had withdrawn. So the 2 that are the incumbents, the presently serving commissioners, have asked to re-up and interviewed with the 3 that were still on. And then they were going to talk about it on the 20th, vote on it, and then recommend it to town council on the 4th. But I believe they'll probably recommend it on the 20th to send on over. So let's see, and then we talked about maybe a different meeting schedule. They were looking at Thursdays as a better fit for their commissioners. So, and that was it.
And the process is they vote on,
They recommend.
and then we vote.
Right, well, then the mayor gets to vote. The mayor gets to decide with the council's approval
Okay.
what she decides.
Okay, right.
So this one's pretty straightforward because
Cool.
you know,
Yeah.
we don't have a big set of applicants.
Just want to make a comment on the soils engineer. So, should somebody in Bluff decide to be so foolish as to build a house on piers where you go 42 feet to bedrock and you're on a sand dune, you need a soils engineer to sign off on your plan. And trust me, that is a $30,000 10 years ago value. I don't know what it would be now, but it was not pretty So I highly recommend, given the copper cliffs out there, all of that is all sand and sand dunes. It gets better as you go further out, but like where we are,
That's a good point.
I'm blaming that on my husband who doesn't listen
So
to
that's
meetings, so.
That's a good point. And when you do a subdivision, people trust when they buy a lot that it's all set and ready to go, so.
Which is part of the problem with the Class C road piece. We haven't accepted that road
Right,
because it's not
right,
just
because
to
that's
a
like-
standard.
Right, that's why we have a little history on accepting roads, but yeah, that's a good point. You know, I always think of it as shale and
Yeah.
stuff, but we have the sand, which is basically. the same.
42 feet to bedrock.
Yeah.
Okay,
That sand dune just west of there is pretty tall. It's a little deeper than 40.
all right, moving to new business, discussion of San Juan County Building Inspection Service Contract. Do we need to go over anything else or just put it up as an update as we get Chris's? Well, we'll just move that. Report on active transportation committee status and upcoming meetings. And Lou, you pretty much covered.
Yeah, I did that earlier in the work session, but the main point is December 3rd up in Moab. If anybody's interested in that meeting, I sent out that invitation. You can register for it. You can do it virtually or in person. And then we're trying to get our regular committee meetings back on a regular schedule now that there's things happening. So.
Just a note on committees in general, in January, when we do a work session, I think we should look at all of our committees, look at what they're doing, what the schedules look like. Do we need to make changes to any of those? Then number 7 is the vote to approve Larson audit invoice for $11,800. Erin, is there anything you want to add to that?
It is my intention to pay that electronically, and so if you all vote to do it, then I will get a signatures like we would for anything else to get that paid.
Need a motion?
Is that what you expected it to be?
$100 more than what was budgeted this year, so it's not bad.
Very good. Motion to approve Larson audit invoice for $11,800.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. 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 Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then number 8, status of the October financials. Erin?
So with the departure of our bookkeeper, the financials are just a little bit delayed. I'm working with our accountant to kind of make sure that everything is in the system, and then we can move forward with reconciliation. So I don't have like the regular October financial report ready yet, unfortunately, but rest assured we are working to get everything paid and out, all the routine payments, I should say. I think with the exception of that one that you've all just approved, everything else is kind of routine stuff that we have authorization to pay and getting payroll done. So that's kind of the status, but clearly as we continue to move forward, we're going to get all of the procedures documented. So the hope would be that anyone could move into the role and get things done, but given that I'm trying to get it all done, it's just a lot. So,
Thanks for handling it.
but yeah, we'll be just fine, but it's just a delay on that. But Dave is helping.
Well, thanks for getting that wrapped up. And I think Britt made an interesting comment to me when we were talking earlier this week that when you're growing and we're building what a town looks like, until we hit the roadblock that says, whoops, we didn't have it, we didn't know we needed it. I think we've hit another one. It's like we've got some things we have to set up and document and just keep going. I'd say in another 10 years, the town will be fully settled. I think they should put that in the feasibility study that do not think this can be done in a year. The corporation piece. Then report and recommendations from cybersecurity training on November 7th, 2024. Erin, that's you also.
So let's see, we're starting with cybersecurity, right? So in Moab, the State Department of Technology Services, they partner with a lot of other entities, including like the Fed, CISA, and don't ask me what CISA stands for, but CISA, as well as like state cybersecurity folks. They all came in and gave presentations about kind of like the current state of cybersecurity, as well as some resources that are available. So there are some actually free resources that I am looking to include when we move IT service providers. Some of these are things that like would have been extra for an IT service provider, but the state actually provides them for free, especially for smaller municipalities. So one of them is like a heightened, essentially like malware detector kind of thing. And then they also do penetration tests where they will look at our network to see where we have weaknesses. And like the CISA will do this, and the state has an option to do it too. So I would recommend that we go ahead and get our cyber. I don't think it makes any sense to worry about what NetForce was or wasn't doing, but we get our new service provider up and running, and then we do implement some of the things that are for free. And then I think we should also then try some of those tests to see like where we still have issues. One of the things that I was not aware of, but the state wants to see pretty much any issue that you might have, whether it be like a phishing email. I mean, clearly if it got to the whole, like there was a breach and we're having ransomware attacks and stuff like that clearly we bring in help for. But they're really interested in phishing emails and interested at like where the threats are coming from. So if you guys are seeing them, forward them to me. And they like track the patterns of like where all these things are coming from. They also give some trends as to what's going on just in the world. So while the total number of threats has kind of relatively stayed the same the last couple of years, the dollar amount that is being stolen has increased significantly. And there are two reasons for that. One, the actual phishing, and this was like across all things, right? But like, for example, for phishing email, they're getting much more sophisticated because they're using AI to write these emails. So all the things that we typically look for with like spelling mistakes and like weird mannerisms and stuff like that you typically see in a phishing email, they're being able to eliminate because they use AI to sound like you and I. So that's one. So like the actual schemes themselves are getting a little bit more sophisticated. And then they're using like Bitcoin essentially, and there's more money that can be transferred more quickly. And so while the total number of threats has not increased, the dollar amount taken has. So healthcare is number one. Critical infrastructure is like the number two industry hit, and then governmental stuff is number three. And I always remind people that even though we're small, doesn't mean that we're immune, but just heads up that free resources available, we will be using them, and then overall people are just getting way smarter with how they're doing these attacks. Another big one would be like essentially getting into our system and then being able to get into like financials or this system or that system. So we always want to be, just don't click on the links, people. But overall I'm really glad I attended in person. And Cinch IT was there. But we talked about how, on a whole, if more people know about these resources for governments, we can bring down the total overall cost of like third-party providers, because they can cover some of this, they can cover, the other stuff. So it was worth it to attend in person, so I'm glad I was able to go.
Really like the idea of having the new IT service come in, get their legs under them, and then running the penetration tests.
Yeah.
Like that is rad that they'll do that.
Totally.
So
I'd really like to have it run on NetForce.
I do. I was like, do we bother to just do it now and see like how much improvement we need?
because if the state can get in, somebody good can get really in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
But yeah, all interesting things
Thank
there,
you.
and we'll keep up our work.
I just think it's important too to remember that it's not necessarily sometimes about stealings. A lot of times hacking and stuff is just about wrecking shop. Just getting in and messing stuff up, like throwing jelly beans. So even if we're not vulnerable to losing out stuff, they can just get in and wreck our files and mess our stuff up for fun because he's a 16-year-old kid, in Rhode Island or whatever.
No. There'll be a 15-year-old in New York. My grandson went to a weekend camp on hacking.
I said 16 from Rhode Island. I was close as I could
15 from New York. He'll be 16.
Closest without going over.
He'll be 16 in March. So, I mean, give him. It's amazing what he can do.
It's the only other thing too is they also have free resources for like training for not only our staff but for like our IT staff but for us. So not necessarily that we will recommend that our new IT service provider go do a bunch of training right off the bat, but we can get the stuff for our users which I think would be good, and we'll include that in some of the annual training that we require of you all.
Thanks, Erin.
So I think it's a really good idea because I can't recognize a phishing thing from. So I just don't open stuff like that. If it's remotely something that.
I mean, I might have had one at work today that was masquerading as a service that I thought that maybe we were somebody else, but then it was like, oh, you have access to this, and it was giving me access to a thing, and I was like, I've never heard of this service. I had to run it by. None of us have heard of it, so it was a catfish, and it looked like Gusto or Netflix or any of those other, big accounts. It looked real. So it wasn't just click this link. It was a total, everything was fake.
Well, and it's easy as you have the post office package that's undeliverable. Please check your zip code. 100%. That's all you have to do is type in your zip code and
All right, then moving to number 10, report on meeting with Utah Geospatial Resource Center on November 7th, 2024, on recommendations regarding floodplain and geological hazard mapping. That's you again.
Yes, so that same day I was up in I was up in Monticello, and the folks, this resource center are the ones who helped me put together the grid system for addressing. So read into this, they're just really good with maps. That's what these guys are great at. They've got some excellent software and some really smart people who work for them. So the director and the gentleman who's always been my point of contact for addressing came down, and I was able to meet with them and some folks from the county. And the big takeaway is that they have some essentially interns who are kind of looking for projects. They always have good interns moving through, and there are some projects that might be a really good fit for them. And so one of those that I kind of identified, but I wanted to get your feedback on, was we have talked in our strategic plan about like geological hazards. And while we don't have an ordinance or anything right now, I think it would be really great to get like a concrete map of exactly where that is within our boundaries. The county feels the same way. So if we were to do something, we could kind of say, certain entities would be prioritized, or maybe the interns could do everything at the same time. But we talked about those from like talus slopes and geological hazards, just here in Bluff, and then also the floodplain mapping. So as we stand right now, we don't have, like when you go and look on FEMA's site, we don't have a floodplain listed. But they could help with that as well. And so if you guys are okay with it, it's no money to us. It's just something that they would be working on. They're interested in looking at the entire county, and they recognize that we don't necessarily have the human capital nor the money to pay for it. But they thought this would be like a really nice capstone project. I don't have like any set timelines or anything. They just kind of wanted to know, is this like a yay or nay, something we'd be interested in? But I think it would be a great resource, especially if they're going to be looking at the county in general.
I think it's a great idea. The geological hazard clearly has been identified in the sense of we've got them. And the floodplain probably just morphs around, but I think it's a good idea to get the information.
The only thing that was brought up was that, there's no information right now. When you have information available, sometimes people are very unhappy because insurance blows up.
Exactly. That's what I'm wondering.
So that is the one consideration, but I do think it's important, and I think it helps us structure ordinances and regulations moving forward. They do have a lot of other capacities. So if you have any other like mapping needs, so like the parcel maps, that was a big one. That one's going to be really complicated, but we'll get there. But any other mapping needs, they might be able to work with us. They're doing a lot with, it sounds like they have a lot of things identified with the county that like the county could use help with. And so while we don't necessarily have like GIS software or anything like that, you know, if there was something that we could piggyback on, now would be a great time because they are showing more focus in our part of the state. So, to planning and zoning would be whenever they have a hot minute to brainstorm.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So yeah, if everyone's okay, I'll just kind of give them the general, like, yes, it's something we're interested in. Let us know what additional information you need.
I guess I would like to know more about if we know, like, what does that harm and who does it harm and stuff, because
I agree.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, they did say that, like, especially the floodplain mapping, that, you know, that they, I don't know if they have necessarily seen, but they've heard of other states, right? Like if you want to do the wildfire hazard thing, right?
Yeah.
No one can get insurance anymore.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
But I would think that the floodplain mapping might actually help us in that we would be able to get flood insurance because we can't right now. At least I couldn't.
Yeah.
11 years ago.
I think it can kind of go both
Both ways.
directions. It can help.
I think in order to get federal flood insurance, you have to be
Declare.
in a documented flood area.
We're at the bottom of the ditch before, and it's gonna get worse. Like, so.
I think that's one of the reasons they have those questions on like the CDBG and the CIB, you know, like, are you in a floodplain? Yeah. And we had to answer those questions.
Yeah, it's always, we don't know. It's not mapped.
So we all do know.
Yeah, we all do.
At least I do.
Hobbles up on the top of the bench there. That was the river.
So is there any other?
There's a water board meeting tomorrow, in case anyone's interested. It's the second Wednesday of the month.
Okay, who's going with me?
When's it tomorrow?
Linda,
It should be short and sweet. The only additional items are
time is
discussing
it
when to
tomorrow?
schedule budget
7?
hearings, so.
Did it 7 tomorrow?
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah, I think, and you can holler, because I
I-
think we too, so.
I'm planning on going, but it's always good to have a second set of ears.
So Britt, if you get tied up or something, just call.
Okay.
Send me a text or something.
Awesome.
Okay, so it is 5:56.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right.
Enjoy your time, Linda.
Thank you.
See you, Linda.
You.